I was kind of caught daydreaming there.
We looked at each other like we were.
Who's going to say something?
I
Anyway, welcome to Azure Flash News. It is August. What is it today? August 9th, 8/9. Yeah, August 9th,
8/9,
2019.
That's right.
And Rick is back.
I am back. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
yeah. Holy cow. I've been busy. I was in Denver last week. The week before, I think I had an engagement. I will tell you, it was great to be out in the mountains. Played a little golf.
Whoa. You can play golf in the mountains?
Yeah, Littleton, Colorado's got a gorgeous golf course, Arrowhead. I recommend it if you're ever out there. It was absolutely amazing.
You were in Denver?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. But it's good to be back. Yeah, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, but hopefully I'm shaving some off here.
That's right.
Celebrated a 45-pound weight loss with a target of 50. I'm well on my way, but
you're almost there, man.
I know. I'm feeling good about it. Feeling good. Now, that has nothing to do with Azure Flash News.
No, it does not. So let's get to the news.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got some announcements around Azure Files today.
Yes, we do.
We've got some stuff around GPUs.
Yes, we do.
GPU VMs.
Yes, we do.
We've also got some cool stuff around Azure Storage. The best part about the best kind of announcement you can have about an Azure resource.
I know, right?
I'll get to it in just a second. What it is.
Absolutely.
And then we also have some Azure Disk Encryption V2 enabled virtual machines.
Yes.
So the disaster recovery. So we can kind of talk through about that.
Absolutely.
And let's dig in.
Yeah, we got some good stuff. Absolutely. Okay. So better security with enhanced access control experience in Azure Files. So if you've worked with Azure Files, you know that we've got SMB 3.0. We've got it's pretty slick, but at the same time, access controls. I think basically started via more of an RBAC type of model, right? So you had role-based access controls. It was more the Azure backplane type of thing. And essentially what we've done is we've looked at it from a vulnerability perspective and said, I think we can do this better. I think we can enhance ACLs on the files and enhance ACLs on the capabilities using Azure Active Directory, which you would expect, right? Because Azure Active Directory is kind of our linchpin for identity as the firewall, right?
Yep.
And which you would expect to see that integrated at some point anyway. So having said that, guess what?
You can now actually use Azure AD DS.
Domain services.
Which basically means domain controllers as a service.
Correct. Yep,
if you will.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe that's a bit of an oversimplification.
Well, no, I like it.
But you can add these, add the AADDS to your virtual machine.
Yep.
And then you can actually get curb tickets from AADDS and then use that to access your
NTFS.
Azure.
Yeah. So you've got NTFS access control lists, ACLs that are enforced basically at the file level, if I remember correctly.
Yep. And so then your Azure Files will do NTFS. ACLs.
Access control. Well, the cool thing is though is if you open Windows File Explorer, and it's going to look exactly like any other NTFS type of. Yeah,
and I think in some ways I think this is kind of the culmination of one of the things we're trying to do is there's two kinds of apps, two kinds of things you do to the cloud. One is you bring your on-prem stuff into the cloud and you want it to be as native. Lift and shift, move and improve.
Move and improve, not your mess for less.
No,
that is not, the cloud always makes things better.
But sometimes it is a mess.
Well, if you have a mess.
But you want it in the cloud and you want to manage as little as possible. So you want to be able to how can we make cloud native properties that replace directly the things you're used to on-prem, but with a cloud-native
low friction migration.
Low friction migration. So in other words, if you have a file server and it uses NTFS and it uses those ACLs,
guess what?
Now you can just move that onto Azure Files and you can just get rid of that. You can just use Azure Files.
Yep. The goal, to your point, the goal is low friction, get it up there, get it running, and then improve upon it as but that's the thing, don't stop, right? I mean, so you can take this, you can do it this way, and then eventually you can move into doing different things with encryption and some other capabilities with HSMs that you may not be able to do on premises because of resource constraints.
You'll notice here there's, this is new since preview. Is this a GA announcement?
GA, what's new in general availability?
So we're announcing GA of this. That's kind of bearing the lead here, I think.
Well, it is a little
bit. What's new since general? Oh, no. This is what's new since GA. Okay, got it.
There you go.
So you'll see here that there's now a really good way to use Windows File Explorer. So you can map directly to this share and assign NTFS permissions directly in Windows Explorer. So it's a very native, natural. We're trying to prove to you and give you the capabilities to manage, what looks and feels like a regular Windows file share.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's a storage file data SMB file share, which You've got contributor and reader. So you don't have to create custom roles, right?
No.
I mean, that's the whole point of it is you would expect to see the same types of role experience that you would if you were leveraging NTFS on-prem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, and what did you have to do to get this capability?
Bubkiss.
Nothing.
Bubkiss.
Nothing. So, you know, go out if you have file shares, file servers, whatever, and you're, because I know this has been a bit of a challenge.
Yep.
If you have file servers that are just serving up shares, it's been kind of challenging to, like, you'd think that would be easy to do in the cloud. It turns out that it's not been that easy, but now we're getting a lot closer to being able to just say, just move it onto Azure Files. You can use it like you're normally using it.
Yep.
So
exactly. Absolutely. And as a non sequitur, as I'm looking over at the bigger screen, I definitely am sparkling right now. Evidently, blue and yellow makes green, and green on a green screen. The Moana effect. I know. I like that. I want to call it the Moana effect because it sounds better than, what's it called?
The Moe effect. I've
effect.
actually heard Moray, but
I sparkle. It's a Moray.
You always sparkle.
It's a Moray.
Yeah,
it's a Moray.
That's amore.
I'm sparkling. Yes,
it
sparkles. It's a South Park episode. Does that sparkle? It sparkles. So I'm sparkling today. I apologize for that, but let that not be a detractor from the actual content.
You look good. You're looking good. All right. So we've got some new VM sizes.
We do. So this is really cool. GPU visualization workloads, right? As you guys remember, way back in the day, we released the N series VMs. We had the NVIDIA chipsets. I think it was the M. There were two that we started with.
And I think it was just like the NV series, and now we're at the V4.
Actually, it was before V. Yeah, it was the successor was the N series.
N series.
So
NV and N.
Yep.
I can't remember, but anyway, we had two kinds. One for that was like more for engineering calculation type thing, and the other one was more for GPU like graphics. So they had slightly different uses.
And the cool thing about this is historically we've had NVIDIA, right? We had an exclusive release with NVIDIA CUDA. I think there were CUDA cards, that kind of thing. Now what we've got though, this is AMD EPYC based, so it's 7002 processors and it's virtualized Radeon M125 GPU. So in addition to the NVIDIA stuff, we now have the Radeon stuff. So you get to pick, right? Which is cool. So the vCPU, you can go from 4 to 32 vCPUs. You can go from 14 gig to 112 gig of memory. GPU memory, you can go from 2 gig to 16 gig, and the Azure network speed is consistent at 50 gigs per second.
Pretty fast.
Pretty fast, right? Very fast. Now, considering you can go up to 100 on some of our machines, it's not as fast, but 50 gig per second is pretty quick, right? And if you couple that with RDMA, right, you've got remote direct memory access. You can do some cool stuff.
Awesome stuff.
Right?
So if you have GPU-based workloads, you know, you need to go and check again. And this is a regular. I think this is another important point to make is this is a regular task in the cloud. Like you have to keep up with what's going on because something new that might make your life easier and better might come up, and so you can't just like there is no. You're never done.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
You're never.
Even if you're doing VM workloads.
If you stop, you die.
Yeah, it's just like you've got to pay attention to your workloads because sometimes even our newer VM sizes are cheaper than our older ones.
Oh yes. In fact, we typically will incent customers to get into the new spaces so that we can deprecate and eventually sunset the old ones, and we incent them by a lot of times making them cheaper to use the newer equipment. So you benefit. You know, it's twofold, right? You get faster, stronger. Bionic. Cheaper. You get Bionic, but you get it at a fraction of the cost of maybe what you're doing with your existing infrastructure. So super cool.
Check it out. Keep up with that stuff. And you know how you keep up with what's going on?
Right here.
Tune in
That's right. Right here. Right in this spot. But also just so it is based on it's still based on SRIOV. So it's still based on the technology that we used historically with the other N series machines, so that you get the dedicated GPU frame buffers. You don't have to worry about anything. I mean, it's dedicated, right? So you're not sharing those frame buffers. Anyway, so if you need it, if you want it, I highly recommend going out and kicking the tires. This is going to introduce some cool virtualization stuff and visualization stuff.
And if you want to sign up, there's a form you can fill out on the
post?
On the link. Okay. And we're initially going to be available later this year with U.S. South Central and West Europe. So check those out. We'll roll them out in more places, I'm sure, but that's where we're going to start.
Yep, and it looks like support DirectX 9 through 12, OpenGL 4.6, and Vulkan 1.1.
Yeah.
So
for those of you who do this kind of stuff, you probably know what that means. Okay. So let's see here. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of prices.
Speaking of prices, this one is a pretty straightforward
announcement.
It is.
Yes,
we're making Azure Archive Storage cheaper.
Because it's not cheap enough. It's not, because, heaven forbid, a rounding error isn't cheap enough, right?
Yeah.
But
if you're storing petabytes and petabytes,
yep.
Then...
Right, absolutely can be. Well, so there's a great example, 112% return on investment. So Forrester basically was looking at existing customers. They did a financial analysis and found that basically the expected benefits in this case of 296, almost 300,000 over 3 years, versus the cost of 140,000, which is the new one. So NPV is 156. So the net present value is ROI of 112%. So I just threw a whole bunch of crazy numbers. I'm not a finance guy. I don't even pretend to play one on TV. But here I am.
We determine the architecture. We don't determine the price.
That's
Although
right.
actually,
well, the customer determines the price.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a race to the bottom.
The architecture is the price is the architecture.
But
yes. Anyway, we're in the solution business.
But so this does, when we talk about, people are concerned about, well, if I have vendor lock-in, I'm concerned because you might all of a sudden raise the prices on me. This is the opposite. This is the exact opposite, right? This is a race to the bottom. We're competing. We have to be cost conscious. We have to be cost competitive, and that's the nature of this industry, right? When you're doing stuff at volume. Last time I checked, which was quite a while ago, we were Microsoft alone was consuming 22%, I think, of the 20-some% of the world's storage and 20-some% of the world's compute. So when you think about that volume of disk and CPU that we're buying at, you can't even come close to buying it at that price.
And
I'm sorry, guys,
we are constantly, I don't think this will ever go away. We're constantly competing for workloads and stuff like that.
And price is a big differentiator.
Price is a differentiator. So you will be sure that our prices are going to be close, if not better.
Exactly.
So I don't think price really shouldn't be one of the big drivers.
No.
Because you're going to find that the prices are very similar.
Yep. And if somebody else announces a price drop, because I guarantee you, guess what? We announce a price drop.
Yeah,
you're going to see other price drops.
Named people will announce price drops too.
Absolutely.
So then there's a little bit more about 2 or 3 different use cases, or like actual examples.
Yep.
And archive storage is available just kind of like all over the place.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
Definitely.
It's in a region near you. Anyway, so archive storage, just so you know, it's actually like the SLA. You can put data on it, but it takes a few hours to get it out.
Correct.
So if you don't know what archive storage is exactly, it's like super deep storage for very cold storage for data you don't need to access very often.
Yep.
And so you get charged more
for transactions.
For transactions, that's right. For data retrieval. Yep. So you pay a lot less per gigabyte, and you pay a little bit more per transaction or per retrieval. Like you might say, I need this batch of files recalled, and it takes a few hours.
Yeah. Yeah. The goal is to think about the loose equivalent would be tape backups.
And I think
loose equivalent, except it actually works when you try to restore it.
I think it is tape.
I
don't know that we really talk about that, but I think it is.
There is some funky stuff. I think it's actually a combination of things behind the scenes, because we have to do stuff to ensure that you can actually recover it, unlike some of the tape backups that I've seen in corporations in the past where they go to recover it and
it's not there.
Doesn't work.
But that's our problem, not yours.
Yep.
The technology we choose to use is our problem to solve. We don't really go in and saying what it is on purpose, because if we come up with a new technology, then we'll use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I guarantee you, we're working on new technologies.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
I know that we are. Anyway, okay, so that's that. So Azure Archive Storage. Go check it out.
Love it.
A region near you.
At a theater near you?
At a region near you.
Yeah, I like it.
Or
I like
near you. You can spin up resources in Japan if you want.
And I'll come and visit you in Japan if you invite me to.
That's right.
I'd love to. So, okay, so disaster recovery for Azure Disk Encryption V2 enabled virtual machines. Let's unbox that.
Okay.
We know what disaster recovery is, but let's not assume anything. Let's not assume. Actually, let me roll that back, because I've been having conversations lately, or I've had a couple conversations with customers, and people get really confused between high availability and disaster recovery.
Yep.
I just had an interesting conversation actually with an unnamed law firm who kept mixing the two terms. They kept referring to disaster recovery, but it was really high availability, right? It was the hot data center stuff, right? It wasn't like geo dispersed.
You can address them both with one strategy.
Totally agree.
But
they're not synonymous.
No, they're not.
Right. So interestingly, so disaster recovery, high availability, we all know, is the ability to stay available with certain fault tolerance, right? So network fault tolerance, certain things happen. you've got high availability. And in our stack, we typically provision 3 instances of X. And if
in that region,
and if X primary it becomes unhealthy, it fails. It goes over to X sub 2 and X sub 3 and all that good stuff, right?
And with the SLA being in general, A, that we don't lose any data.
Correct.
And B, that you should be able to just see a transient failure.
Yep.
And your code should just be like, I couldn't commit. Let me try again.
Yep.
And then it works.
Exactly.
Right. And so you should build that into your applications. And typically, if you use a lot of our SDKs, it's built in.
Yeah, reliable retry policies are part of our SDKs.
Yeah, so usually you don't have to worry about that too much. That didn't used to be the case.
So having said that, disaster recovery would be, so that region that we're talking about where we have high availability, if that whole region became unavailable, let's say a ditch witch cut or a smoking crater, whatever the scenario is, disaster recovery means you're going to fail over to a paired region, right? So typically what we do is we have paired regions for DR in the same geopolitical boundaries for regulatory constraints. But we give you the capability then to recover from a true disaster, not like a network hiccup or some kind of weird outage, a VM failure, that kind of thing.
And disaster recovery usually means data loss.
Yes, absolutely.
And which we know because you can't synchronously replicate your data to a disaster recovery area, so you have to do it asynchronously. So typically you're having a business discussion of, do we want to incur the data loss? Is the outage going to be long enough that it's going to be worth incurring the data loss?
Right.
Sometimes the answer is no.
Right.
And you just sit tight.
Yep.
But sometimes it's yes, and you're going to fail over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's disaster recovery.
Okay,
Although,
so we got that. We're good there. So Azure Disk Encryption, V2. So with Azure Disk Encryption, we are encrypting, obviously, your VM disks, right? So we've got, what is it? It's BitLocker with Windows, and it's Lux with Linux, I believe, is what we're using for disk encryption.
Yeah, and so the whole point is that it protects disk theft.
Correct.
So in other words, if somebody gets into your Azure account and pulls the disk or whatever. Now I'm not talking about the physical disk.
No, you're talking about the virtual.
I'm talking about the virtual disk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, if an employee copies the disk and takes it home with them, it's encrypted when they open it up, whenever they try and double click.
And without the BitLocker key or without the Lux key. And you can use an HSM for that, right? So Azure Key Vault is a great place to store those keys for your disk encryption. But having said that, so we have disaster recovery for Azure Disk Encryption V2 enabled VMs, right? So BitLocker drive encryption and DMCrypt for Linux is what we use. So it's not Lux, it's DMCrypt. Sorry. So in full transparency, we are using DMCrypt for Linux, right? And it is integrated with Azure Key Vault, right? And basically, so the DR solution with Azure Site Recovery is really important because Azure Site Recovery basically gives you the ability to orchestrate the replication, the failover, and the recovery of the solution, right? So in a disaster recovery scenario, you can use Azure Site Recovery to actually fail over to that paired region. But we had some, apparently with the Azure Disk Encryption V2, we weren't ready for prime time yet.
Yeah. And so the thing is that, if you think about it for a second, we're going to replicate the encrypted disk over to the secondary region.
Yep.
That's what we have to do. We don't have a choice. It needs to stay encrypted. We don't decrypt it to transmit it.
Right.
So it has to stay encrypted.
Yep.
Then when you come up, then we just have to be able, like if you fail over, like we need the keys so that we can boot these things up and read the disks.
Exactly.
So that's part of the solution here is like, how do we coordinate all this stuff? And you coordinate it with Azure Site Recovery.
Exactly.
So that's the tool that you use.
Yep.
So you can do all of these things. You can coordinate all of this stuff. And once again, we're talking about VMs here.
Yep.
So VM disks that are encrypted.
Yep.
You can use Azure Site Recovery to coordinate this whole thing, even if you're doing BYOK.
Absolutely.
Biak.
Absolutely. Yep. Biak. Yeah. So some cool stuff. Again, go ahead.
So one thing that clearly stated here is this feature currently only supports Windows VM.
Using managed disks.
Using managed disks, which that's not a surprise.
Right. No, I totally agree.
If you're not using managed disks and you have the option, you should definitely be using managed disks.
Please do.
Yeah. The pricing structure is a little bit different, but you don't have to manage it as much.
Correct.
Hence the reason for being called managed disks.
You don't have to worry about spanning and pinning and all those other goofy terms we had to worry about.
It was challenging.
Yep.
Anyway, so the support for Linux VMs is coming soon.
Real soon, apparently.
A few weeks.
Yeah.
One of these has to come first.
Yep.
That's inevitable.
Yep.
Linux is like, we're not trying to.
No.
It's just we wanted to go ahead and make the announcement now that Windows was done. Linux will be coming soon.
Yep.
So I don't I think there are hardly any environments that don't use both.
Right.
So if you're ready to test, start with your Windows. By the time you're done testing, Linux will be ready.
Absolutely. Give it a shot. Definitely.
Is that it?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
I think that was a good one.
So
a little bit short.
A little bit short. So
we're going to give you 10 minutes back.
That's right. That's absolutely
You've got things to do. We're going to give it back.
That's right. So one thing I would like to do is maybe next week, we always like to do some kind of hands-on demos if we can. Have been spending some time writing Java Azure functions, using Java, putting them into an Azure DevOps pipeline. There are some nuances, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you're taking jar files, typically is what you're bundling up. Now we've got to change some of the configuration to zip files. We got to do a few different things to get the Java jar files and all the dependencies and all the Maven stuff. So maybe do a demo next week. It'd be fun to kind of show nuts from VS Code all the way to provisioning and to the pipeline and deploying it out into production and seeing the actual end result.
Yeah, cool, man. We got some cool stuff coming. Yeah. We'll be back next week with more announcements. Yep. Where can people catch you, Rick?
Well, you can find me on the street, typically begging for my I can always be reached.
We can find you at the ski slope.
Yes,
with the snowboarding
or with a golf club in my hand if it's summer. Yeah. You can always reach me at rick@microsoft.com, or of course, I'm always monitoring our Twitter handle at Azure Flash News.
At Azure Flash News on Twitter.
On Twitter, on YouTube, on Stitcher, on
Google,
everywhere.
On Google Play, and also on Apple iTunes. If you don't mind, please give us 5-star reviews. We like that. It helps the search.
Please do.
Do you have any stickers?
I absolutely have stickers.
So I tell you what, I'm just going to say, if I haven't talked to you about this.
Okay, so
if you will tweet us,
if
you will send Rick an email, he'll send you a sticker.
Absolutely, I can do that.
So just let us know. We'll send you a little.
We can throw a little swag out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. We can make that happen.
Yeah, we can do that.
We want to hear from the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, and also, if you want to catch me, you can catch me on Twitter at mgarner on Twitter or mgarner@microsoft.com. Please feel free to reach out.
Yep.
And we mentioned all of the other different channels. So catch us there.
Yep.
By the way, next week we will probably be on a different broadcasting system that might look a little different.
Yep.
But you should be able to just keep using the aka.ms/joinafn link. Hopefully that's what you've been using. If you're not using that, you're going to need to use aka.ms/joinafn.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where you'll use. We're going to start using Teams actually.
Yeah. Yes.
So Microsoft Teams.
Finally.
Yeah. We're going to start using that.
We were the laggards. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. But we're going to switch, and we will catch you guys later. Oh, thanks to the MTC.
Emily Mac-Miller behind the scenes, who always is. Yep. These guys show up, man.
We show up and everything is ready, and they do a great job of making sure we look good. That's the most challenging part.
That's right. That's right.
With the sparkle.
With the sparkle, making me sparkle it's a challenge.
Anyway,
but they rise.
Thanks for joining the show today. We appreciate it. Have a good week.
Yeah, and as usual, we look forward to talking with the same time, same place next week. Until then, keep your fingers on the keyboards and your head in the clouds.
Thanks, everybody.